And we're live. I'm here with Josh and Jeremy. Guys, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing good.
Living the
Josh?
living the dream, brothers.
Good to hear. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Plato's Laches. This is probably my second or third time listening to it.
Okay.
If anyone listening on the Scribd app, you can find all of the Platonic dialogues read by multiple voice actors. Basically, have them all acted out in front of you, and it's really high quality on Scribd from Way Till, which is the one you can find if it's really good quality. But let's just start first. Jeremy, Josh, what do you think?
I would say also you can read it. It took me 30 minutes to read it. Like it's
That's
not
very short.
That's very short.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't really read it since college, but I do remember the dialogue for the most part. Just probably just some of the minor details I'm not going to remember, like the people's names and shit like that. But I do remember the conversation pretty in depth.
It's a good one.
Well,
How's it go? Go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say, well, let's set the framework for what the discussion is, right? So you've got two young men who are writing together, talking together, and I say young, they're probably in their 30s, right? And they're like, hey, we want our kids to not be shitbags, so we need to make sure that they are raised properly. And they go, okay, well, those two guys that are up ahead of us, probably in their 50s, right? They're distinguished gentlemen. They have a history of being good people. So let's go talk to them and find out what advice they could give us, right? Let's go to our elders who have demonstrated that they're decent people, and let's get advice from them. So they write up to the other two people, talk to them, and they go, let's go talk to Socrates, let's go talk to, it is Socrates. Yeah. Let's go talk to Socrates because he's the thinking guy, and so like let's I'm a warrior, or I'm a this or I'm a that, right? But I'm not a thinker per se. So let's go talk to the person who thinks about thinking and see if where we should go to make sure that our children are raised in virtue, right? Because if there's one thing that we as men can understand more than anything else, is that the greatest legacy that we can leave in this world is what we embed in our children. Because nobody's going to remember my name, but they might remember my kids, and my kids are definitely going to have more of an effect than I will, if for no other reason than there's 4 of them. Jeremy's got like a dozen, so. And so that's the basic premise, of what we're setting up is, we want to make sure that our kids don't turn into shit libs, right?
One thing I really enjoy about this one is that it reminds me. I think if I remember correctly, according to Thucydides in the history of the Peloponnesian War, Socrates served under one of these generals when he was a hoplite. I was looking into that, and it's. People see Socrates as this single guy, but he was definitely that. He also was renowned for being very, very brave on the battlefield. There was an event where a younger guy, probably a lover of his of some sorts, was hurt and surrounded. He stayed by the guy and fought off several guys waiting for reinforcements. And so there's this. He's very much a single guy, but also military veteran. High honor amongst these generals, and I think that's another reason why they probably went to him. And I gotta say, I love how again, like every Socratic dialogue, Socrates is like, well, I'm gonna ask more questions, and then they never ask anything. I'm gonna go, well, I'm not demanding to raise your children because I don't know anything actually. I think the line he said in the book was, they ask him later, like, do you want to be the one to teach our children, Socrates? He goes, if I ever misled any of you by making you think I know anything during this conversation, I'm sorry because I actually don't know anything. I love his attitude about all that. I love it every time.
Yes, yeah.
That's at the very beginning. What qualifies Socrates is that he served heroically in fighting a losing battle, but instead of just running and fleeing, he actually fought the rear guard action to allow the other soldiers to be able to retreat. And in that fighting, he was beside the general. And so he had the back of the general. He was there. He was fighting. He was doing his duty. He performed it honorably and well, which allowed a lot of people to retreat. And so he has the virtue of being known for what he's done, even if he's not trying to use his experience as a justification for his excellence.
Also, I think it's interesting. By asking everyone to define codes, while researching this one, I've kind of looked into saints on writing on codes, and I came across a bunch of writings on fortitude. Specifically, Aquinas' fortitude, like fortitude just to be a motto and die, which Socrates ended up being a motto. So we had, both kinds of codes, on the battlefield and just to be the persevere and then die for his beliefs. So really, all around, he acted in both instances. He acted courageously. So I found this to be a very interesting one from that standpoint. What about you? What do you think so far?
No, nothing. Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys are saying is accurate in what the text was saying. I guess what I normally try to dig deep into is pretty much like the question of the necessity of knowing the good for the virtue of bravery, because it seems like that's really what much of the dispute throughout the dialogue is do you have to know what is good in order for you to act in a brave way? Like, because can there be instances where you could think of, in just an counterfactual way, whether you can have bravery without knowledge of the good, or can you have knowledge of the good without bravery? And so I think that's where, at least for me, is where the dialogue gets a little more interesting. Is attempting to understand that.
I think it was like the second guy who said they got into discussing like animals having codes of bravery, and he was like, no, codes requires wisdom. Which I definitely found that part to be interesting. I had a conversation with my coworkers today about it, asking them all, like, what do you think codes is? And they all were like, well, codes, I guess, would just be like willing to fight and die for whatever you believe in. Like, so could we say a pedophile defending his kidnapped victims is good because he's courageous in defending them from the police? I don't think so. Like, that has to be a virtue that is in pursuit of the codes. Like, there's a difference between like daring and codes, And so
because
courage that's enacted for evil or that's twisted against its rightful purpose isn't good. Because all of evil is perversion and twisting, right? So it's like courage is standing and fighting for that which is good, that which you believe in. You can be twisted in that, but that doesn't mean that courage is itself evil. That just means that your actions were evil and twisted.
Well, and I don't really think it's question whether that courage is evil in that instance. Is really the question is whether it's courage at all. Like, can there be courage if you are doing it for a wrong cause? Like a realistic example would be like Mohammedans blowing themselves up. It's like you could see this, and obviously you are going contrary, and you're facing your fear of death, and it kind of hits most of the marks that we understand courage to be. But the reason why I think many times we say that it's not courageous is precisely because they're not doing it for the good in the end; they're doing it for an evil. And so I do think that's normally where there is at least where the interesting part of the discussion happens, because because one can make the argument, yes, but they do firmly believe in what they're doing is the good. But this is also where Socrates gets into the discussion, and where a lot of this ideas of that nobody does any action for the sake of evil comes about from this dialogue of Plato. And so it's like, well, is your belief that you're doing something good enough to suffice the action as being brave at all?
So this is where I come in, right? So because at this point I can look back and say that we shouldn't have been in Iraq and Afghanistan, places I was at, wars that I was engaged in. And so I think intent matters a lot in this instance. And so the thing about the Mohammedans is their intent isn't defense or good. It's selfish, right? Like, they want the 72 virgins. They want to to bypass, their religious structures and so on. Whereas I knew in the 8 years I was in, I knew maybe like a handful of people who joined the military because they wanted to kill Talheads, right? Like the reason people joined is because they wanted to defend their country, their family, their way of life, right? And it's one of the things that the military does intentionally, right? Like when the military is training soldiers to kill, they don't actually train soldiers to kill. What they train soldiers to do is to defend themselves. So let me give an example. Orders come from on high. We need you to go take that hill. Go take the hill. Cool. Okay. If nobody shoots at me while I'm taking the hill, guess what? I'm not going to shoot anybody. I'm not actually interested in killing people. I'm interested in obtaining this objective. Okay. Now, the objective doesn't actually matter for the purposes of this discussion. But what we are trained to do is not really to kill our enemies, it's to defend the people to our right and our left. So that if we are attacked and somebody shoots at us, now we are defending our brothers and sisters to our left and right. It's a completely different thing. And the human mind is much more able to justify, rightly, wrongly, whatever. It's able to justify intense amounts of violence in defense, whereas doing it on offense, it's a hard thing to try to get people to do. I think it really does go against the way we're built by God.
I guess the part that I'll do a little pushback is your assertion that the Mohammedans do it for selfish reasons. I don't know whether that's necessarily true. I mean, to say that they only do it for selfish reasons, well, there probably are some people that do it the same way, like you said, there's some people in the military that just want to kill ragheads. But it will be hard for me to say that, well, every single person that has done a suicide bomb has done it for selfish reasons. I think many times to push a person to go to that limit is that they believe that there's a true evil in the world. I believe the Mohammedans truly believe that the West is evil. They don't just metaphorically believe that, they think that they are the evil in this world. And so with that, they're willing to kill themselves in order to annihilate the infidels. And they will sacrifice themselves upon that cause. And so I think many times you could look at it as a more general cause, that I am willing to die for the cause of getting rid of the infidels, getting rid of the evil in the world. Yeah.
And if we just change this slightly and we said, would it be honorable for a person to martyr themselves in destroying an abortion clinic to prevent the infanticide of children? Is that not acceptable? And it's like, well, you would prefer that you not murder yourself. It's like, okay, but that's the only method you got. That's all you got. You can either let kids be butchered, or you can willingly take on the cross and say, I will kill myself to prevent this from occurring.
I mean, if it actually does make a difference, I would say that person will go down as a good. I mean, that would be my argument. So yeah, it is a good. If you're aware, and I think when you put it into different terms that is more agreeable for people, they do understand that as being a virtuous act. I mean, you hear constantly, that people said that they wish they could have, live in the time of Hitler to have stopped whatever at any cost of killing the Jews or something like that. And it's that, well, yeah, if you truly believe that it's an evil, and you truly believe that what is happening is the most grievous of sins that can happen in the world, and you blow up the building and yourself along with it, I mean, it's hard for me to say that that's a necessary evil. I would say that there is at least a sense of bravery that you're doing to sacrificing yourself for a much larger cause. Ultimately, if you think of that if you do think that that's going to actually affect change in the world,
right? And that's why I took what you said and I switched it around to the United States military and the nation building that we've done, because it's easy to disparage them, It's much harder when it's our people and what we've done to examine to examine that in just like a fuck them kind of way. Like, you know, at that point,
Yes.
you gotta actually like, well, okay, are you saying that everybody who joins the military is a murderer just because? There are people who say that and they're insane.
Right, yeah.
So it's like there's definitely levels here. It's not as clear cut as people want it to be.
Yeah, and I do think like Socrates' assertion that you cannot have really an instance where somebody chooses evil for the sake of doing evil is a very interesting idea, because, you know, when we do ponder most of our actions, even if we in the end are willingly choosing an evil, we're thinking that we're willingly choosing a lesser evil. For the most part, if you take most scenarios, like even if we're aware that the act that I am doing is sinful and I am aware that I'm doing is sinful, many times we think the alternative is that much worse than what you're actually engaging in. And so then we willfully engage in that sin because of
So we're talking about adultery and whores versus divorce again. I understand.
that is an example of one, yes.
It always comes back to that.
It always comes back to whores. No, but I think for for many things, like even a young kid who is pressured into smoking or something, I think a lot of times they view the embarrassment of being a pussy as being worse than just smoking. You know, and they kind of make that decision. And so they look and say, well, am I going to be a pussy or am I going to actually do this act? And so it's hard for me to say that.
And at 13 or 14, they might be right. Now, if you're still getting peer pressured in that way because you don't have that fortitude at 25, now you're a pussy because you're going along.
Exactly.
Right?
Like,
yes. You're supposed to have a little bit of danger that you get into when you're younger. Like you're supposed to test boundaries.
Oh yeah, and I agree. But yeah, I do think that, I mean, it's a philosophical idea that I think I've thought of it for many years, and I kind of struggle with, is whether I could ever think of an action that somebody does for the sake of its evil nature. And I can't really think of an example where someone does that.
I think what the Aquinas are all human actions are aimed at least what's the word he used? Imagined good was the word he used?
Yes, yeah.
And I think the same thing. I mean, to get a little cringe because most of my listeners are economic fans. I mean, also economics shows values are subjective. I think, obviously, you know. Yeah. So I think how do I put this? Yeah, I don't think human beings can act the actual. If a human being does something, does it because even if he does something that is possibly evil, and if he has to say do an evil act, step one, it's in the action of a higher good at step two. You know, it's always for a higher good because your art is naturally geared towards the good. But yeah.
That's why the danger is perversion. You know, that's why evil isn't evil per se. It's not this thing that exists, right? Evil is always just a perversion of good, right? Like you were aiming for this and instead you missed and went this way, right? Because your focus was inaccurate, your aim was inaccurate, you know, whatever, right? You're just like, you know, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, you know, like and that's one of the things as I've gotten older where I can actually look at people who were in horrific spots and I can say, there, but for the grace of God go I, because I could see myself making those exact same stupid choices, you know, because I've made lots of really dumb choices. I just didn't get caught.
So I just didn't suffer the consequences of the actions. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I suffered some of the consequences. Some of them, right? Not all of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Not all of the potential consequences were realized. Yes.
Right.
So I want to ask the question real quick. Has the West gotten more courageous or less courageous as time has gone on? 'Cause I think we've definitely gotten more rash, but also with the
Less.
like, yeah,
Less.
less, yeah,
Less.
less.
100% less. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Because we are no longer a patriarchal society. Because we are a matriarchal society. So in order for courage to be a thing, you have to be willing to stand and fight for that which you believe. You have to be willing, even if it means that you're alone, right? You must be willing to plant your feet like a tree and say, I will not move. Now you can that is only appreciated in a society where strength and competence are appreciated. That is not the society that we live in. The society that we live in today only appreciates going along with people, right? Like it's matriarchy. It's completely based around not being ostracized, right? The weapon of men for doing poorly is guilt. It's internal. Like, I'm disappointed in you. You should have done better. You can do better. I believe in you. And so as iron sharpens iron, I'm going to use some friction on you and you're going to move your way up, right? It's not how women operate. Women operate like crabs in a bucket, right? Like you need to be a part of the society. And it makes complete sense, right? Like if you're going to be with child for 9 months and then you're going to be taking care of a small child for the next 3 to 5 years at least, like you cannot be kicked out of the tribe. That's a descendance for you and your children. So it's perfectly rational why they act the way they do. And it would be completely irrational for us to expect that women would act like men or that men would act like women. It's just unnatural, right? So I don't blame women or anything else. If anything, I blame men for allowing women to have this. The smell of pussy has just driven men insane for the lack of it. They're completely wrong because they think that by giving in and by giving women what they want, that's how they get the pussy, when it's actually inverse. Right?
Completely pussy rip society.
Do you know how you make a woman completely insane? Give her everything she asks for.
True.
You give a woman everything she asks for, and she will be the biggest basket case you've ever seen. And if you have any questions, just look at a 40-year-old feminist and ask, are those sane people? They're not. They cannot control their own boundaries. That's for us to do. And simultaneously, they are supposed to test the boundaries that we put up, right? They're the ones that put up all the tests to determine whether or not we are strong enough to keep them. And so we can't get mad at them for actually checking the code to make sure that it's legit. And they shouldn't get mad at us for saying, no, stay in the fucking box because this is what's required.
Yeah, I do think another quality that the reason why I would say the contemporary society has moved away from the virtue of fortitude is the same reason why it kind of moved away from every single cardinal virtue, and that's because it just lacks the good. When the only way you could have temperance is if you know what the extremes and the deficiencies are. And I would say likewise, the only way you could actually have bravery is if you know the cause in which you are standing for or against is the actual good in which you're standing for and against. If you don't have the good, you tend to lack any and all of the cardinal virtues altogether. And I think that is what we have seen in a modern society, because like you can look at some of people's actions, and you could say where they, at some point at least maybe like in the 1970s or 60s, when there was a lot of the sexual revolution, there were people who became ostracized from their towns, from their societies, which is why many of them migrated to like California, where they could be with more like-minded people. But there were people that sacrificed their entire upbringing, their entire neighborhood, their entire ethos for the fight for their homosexual desires or for other kind of sexual liberation nonsense. But I would never call that brave, because they were not actually going for the good. They were satiating their appetites, which I think privates one from the actual virtue of courage.
That was gonna be my point. Was that West has gotten less brave because we have no temperance or fortitude, and in denying ourselves our immediate desires, and that people just immediately go, well, "I want that, so I'm going to do that now." And so there's no temperance, there's no patience; it's all pure gluttony. And so there is no temperance, no fortitude, and denying oneself the desires of this, desire. So without how do I put this? It is not virtuous to do. It is not virtuous to only pursue good when it's good for you. It's only virtuous when you pursue good really at a cost of oneself. And so these people had, no one, the idea of cost of myself. No, I love myself. I'm the number one important thing here. It's all about me. So why would I ever prolong, not satiating my desires? Therefore, we have no temperance, no fortitude, no courage.
Well,
yes,
and how can you have those things when we're materialists and reality isn't even real? Right? If we can't even understand that reality is a thing that exists, then nothing else can.
Right. It can't happen.
It just can't. And that's why, I had this conversation with my daughter, and she was like, "Oh, well, there's no such thing as truth." I'm like, "Well, then just kill yourself. Like, nothing's true."
Just kill.
I mean, if nothing's true and everything is just as you want it to be or anything else, nothing's real. It's all a fucking figment of your imagination. Then just kill yourself, because
that's basically what the patron saint of this podcast, Zachary Tom, was saying before he converted. He's just like, have you ever heard his? Have I ever told you like Zachary Tom's conversion story?
No.
He was going to a university in Paris where he met his wife, later wife, Risa. I don't know her last name at the time, and they were both going to in the early 20th century was all Sartre and Nietzsche and all this like relativist stuff, and they both said, well, if truth is not real, let's just kill ourselves. And they got and Risa was like, well, let's wait a year or see if we can find truth, and if we can't find it, then we'll kill ourselves. And 9 months later, Steve met a Catholic priest, and he introduced Mary Tom to Thomas Aquinas, and they converted and did not kill themselves. Which is the most fun romance I've ever heard. It's like, well, we love each other, and nothing is true, so we'll kill ourselves in 1 year, and then become Catholic. It's the most fun story I've ever heard in my life.
That is, that's amazing. Yeah, because I just think it's a necessary contingency for any virtue is really to have truth, because without truth, there's no way to measure or gauge one's actions, because that is basically how we gauge our action. Is how do we gauge it to be good or virtuous or whatever? It's, well, if it is more true, and if it is lacking the truth, it is privating the good as well. So your actions are less virtuous to the point that it's just vicious. And so that's why when I think of a lot of these leftists who call themselves brave, at least at some point, now you can't really say that about them because they've became the dominant culture. But there was a certain point in which they weren't. And they called themselves brave and each other brave. And they really weren't being brave because they were not pursuing the good. They were not pursuing the truth. They were simply pursuing themselves.
Their own desires.
Yeah.
Early in the book, I love it a little bit early in the book when they're arguing about fighting in heavy armor. And they ask Socrates, like, your answer, and they go with the majority, and he turns like a very subtle and quick argument against democracy.
Yes,
I love when Socrates just sneak in Plato just sneaks in a quiet, quick argument, and it moves on. Because they're always just great. Like this argument, like, who would you trust to build the ship master or the majority? It's like, yes, Socrates, yes, thank you, obviously. But yeah, I love it. It's not. I don't think there's one bad Platonic dialogue. They're all just fun because Socrates is just a fun character.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we'll have my family of 6 and my wife and 4 children and myself, and we'll do a democracy on how we should fix this vehicle. We'll see how that works.
I also just find it interesting that these most of the problems that we have of today are just ancient problems.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, you hear many people talk about consensus. They're like, well, the scientific consensus is this, or the population consensus is this, and so this is why we ought to do it. And it's such an easy position to dismiss through just a very quick argument. There's something like what Socrates does in this dialogue, because it's a weird phenomena, I think, that just happens with certain, I guess, more non-combative societies. Like the Spartans really wouldn't have that problem, but in Athens you do. And it's like when you have a society where it's no longer battling, you begin to have this like really retarded idea that consensus or whatever most people agree upon would then therefore become the good. And that's just dumb.
Yeah, I think that happens when we begin to separate authority and power, right? When we begin to separate authority and responsibility, right? Slavery, to me, like the most real definition of slavery, I heard from Rollo Tomassi, right? And I think he got it from somewhere else, doesn't matter. But responsibility without authority is slavery, which is democracy in a nutshell, right? Like the masses, the people, we don't have any authority over what actually occurs in our country, but we are held responsible for what happens in our country because we voted.
What I like about, because the subtle argument Socrates gives against democracy is not only easy to give, it's so much more natural and intuitive than like any anarchist argument against democracy. Or against any modern argument. It's like, well, the long, complicated argument about consent and the individual versus like, who do you trust, the expert or the expert or the masses? And so like, it's a much more natural, intuitive argument. Of course, people nowadays even point to like companies, go, well, this company should be democratic with the workers' unions and the whole new socialist, what's it called? Oh, what was it called? The not clean capitalism. What's his name? The CEO of Whole Foods has this thing where he's like, what's he call it? Compassionate capitalism, where he has all his employees get a vote over the CEO on how the company should operate. So he's like democratize the workplace.
Yeah.
I met him actually. He's a pretty friendly guy. The CEO. He's pretty friendly.
Oh, really?
He wrote a good book, interesting book. Very friendly guy, but he's just so wrong on everything.
Would it be surprising to find somebody who's friendly and yet completely like doe-eyed about reality? No.
I feel like nowadays, when you talk to people who are completely incorrect about reality, there's like a vindictiveness to them. At least it's the modern left. It's more like the I don't know, at least in my experience, when you talk to the more younger modern left people who are completely wrong on everything, because they have no understanding of reality, there's a vindictiveness in their ignorance. And he had a more. I think he actually believed he was doing good.
I do think that's probably a good way to put it, though, because there is. I do agree that there is a unique flavor of the way that the left is now that I don't think we've really seen before in the past, and it's and maybe we have, but not in the immediate past, anyways. Maybe thousands of years ago is where we would have seen it. But yeah, it's the same thing that I've noticed with like the dinks. And I remember when I made that post on Twitter, that's really what I meant by it. It's like when you see these young men who want to be dinks, it reminds me of an older cartoon. Josh, you might remember it. I don't know if you remember, Caleb, but Powerpuff Girls. I don't know if you remember this, Becca Honeys. And do you remember that? Do you remember him? That who is like the devilish figure. That's what these young men remind me of. They're so ambiguous in their sexuality that there's something demonic about a young man who is all pussified and polite, but also simultaneously vindictive against everybody else because they're not really friendly about it. When you hear the way the dinks talk about people who have children, they talk about it almost as if people who have children are batshit crazy, that they don't know what they're doing, but he knows what he's doing. He's saving money. he could make these keyboards.
They really internalized this whole like one, pure selflessness, but also they internalized a lot of the anti-natalist argument that like bringing children into this world is just is a negative itself, which is just stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You're giving them too much credit, right?
I don't think they know. I think it's just intuitive.
You're giving them too much credit. What it really is that they must conform. Their entire identity is about conformity. So anything that disagrees with their opinion, with the way that they see the world or anything else, is upsetting their conformity, right? So if you are a married person with children, you're saying that this thing that is real and true and we can see has value. And they cannot accept that, because if this thing is real and true and has value, then by definition, what does that mean about what they have done? Right? That's why they are so vindictive, is because they're not in reality. They're not based in reality. It's all emotion.
But yeah.
So
but I also do think that they are fearful of it. Is that they're fearful of responsibility, they're fearful of the hardship that's going to come about. And I do think many people on the right do not do the position of service to simply say, no, but if you have kids, you're going to find meaning. It's like, well, you might not, because I mean, you could have kids and be a selfish son of a bitch. There's people that rape their own children. There's people that beat their own children. There's people that abandon their own children. I mean, look at the entire, like, what is it? 60% of the Black community. It's like, they have these kids and they leave. And so it's like, you can produce kids and still find misery. And I don't think it's a formula. It isn't as if you just have the kids and then you're happy. The thing is that you do the things that you ought to do. And when it hurts and you're suffering from it, as I said in my post, just suffer in silence and then just continue to fucking have kids. Like basically fuck your happiness. Fuck you seeking to be happy. Fuck seeking fulfillment, because you're never going to find it. I mean, what are you going to do? You're just going to produce kids and find fulfillment in the children? No, you don't have kids to find fulfillment. You have kids because it's a natural consequence of fucking. And when there's a natural consequence of fucking, now there's this new life that is produced, and this new life is an individual, and this new life has its own feelings, its own emotions, its own intellect, its own everything, its own will. And now you have to engage this individual in the world, and now it's your fucking responsibility to teach them right. And the moment that you stop seeking fulfillment and happiness is the moment that you truly find peace. It's because you're not seeking it. You're not sitting there like, I want to get married, so I'm fulfilled. Why? I mean, what's the woman going to do? She's going to be a pain in your ass for the rest of your life. That's the reality of marriage.
This is probably the best thing Jordan Peterson ever said. Was people were talking about how evil strong men can be, because wait till you see how evil weak men can be. This is probably the greatest thing he's ever said.
I agree with him there.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Because life in the end is going to be hard regardless of what you do. It's always going to be hard. But you only find peace when you say fuck you to yourself. You look at somebody and say fuck you. It's not about you anymore. I'm just going to do what I am supposed to do. Like I watched this stupid ass movie yesterday. I've never seen it. Yes, yeah. There was a stupid movie that I watched yesterday, but I watched it just because I love Carrie Russell. I ever since I saw her in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids when I was younger, I thought she was beautiful. I was like, wow, I love that hair. And so there was a movie I never seen from her. It's called 8 Days a Week, and it was about this kid and his grandfather from Italy was telling him a story about his great grandfather who told the person he loved that he loves her, and he's going to wait outside of her balcony until she finally returns the love back to him, right? And so this kid, he kept calling it a retarded idea. He was like, "This is the most retarded idea I ever do." But for some reason, I just did it. So he did this to Carrie Russell, who he knew since she was a kid. And so, through the entire movie, she doesn't return the love back to him. And then when he leaves, she says she finally missed him because he was standing out there all summer, like for 3 months straight. He kept standing out there and everything. They kind of became closer friends and they were talking and everything. But what I loved about that movie was the ending. He finally fucks her. And then he was like, and after making love, I realized the purpose in life. is just to make love. That when we drink wine and we go out to eat or we get a job, it's just the in-between times to continue to make love. And you hear that, it's like, well, yeah, kind of, right? It's like, that's where we get married. It's like, why do a normal man want a better job? So he could get a better woman. Why does he want a better woman? Because he wants to fuck someone that's hot. And then what happens when you fuck someone that's hot? You keep doing it. You know, anybody that actually has had a good sex life realizes that all of your kids are accidents. It isn't as if you're fucking and thinking in the back of your head, I'm making a kid, I'm making a kid, I'm making a kid. You're just thinking, holy shit, she's hot. I'm doing it right now. I don't give a shit what's going to happen. I'm going to fuck her. And then the woman's the same thing. She's like, I don't care what's happening. He's fucking me so good. I'm having an orgasm. And then what happens? You get pregnant. You're like, oh shit, now we're pregnant. Now I got to take care of the kid. That's just a normal animalistic view and understanding of the way we behave. And so when you see like these dink people, like literally planning even their sex schedule, because none of them just fuck spontaneously. If you fuck spontaneously, you're going to produce a child. But I guarantee that to anybody. If you just fuck, you're going to produce a child.
I mean, that's what Catholic family planning is
exactly
all about.
It is, yes. It's just spontaneous. She's doing laundry and fuck, or she's there. She looked kind of hot. I'm just gonna. The kids are playing somewhere else. I'm gonna fuck her right there, you know. Or if she don't have kids yet, she's cooking something. It smells good, and she's hot doing it. I always want to fuck some woman with an apron, and then you fuck her right there. If you fuck spontaneously, you're gonna produce a child, right? I have fucked in every room imaginable, and so it's like it's going to happen. And so when you meet people who don't have kids, you know their life is a scheduled fuck life. And it's to the point that they try to find meaning in other stupidity. Like the video that I posted up, this guy talks about how he makes keyboards. It's like, that's your meaning in your life? And then there's a shot of him reading a book. I forgot the title of the book, but it was basically a self-help book to how to have sex. It was like, that's what ends up happening to these people. If you watch that video closely, look at the book that he's reading. It's a self-help book of how to have sex. And
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold on. Do you know how men get better at sex?
By fucking.
By fucking.
Yes. That's how you get better. When you do it the first time, you're probably going to come fast. But the more that you do it, you understand the rhythm and you understand the woman better, and you get better at it. And so it's like these. And
then you learn this fancy thing called foreplay, and you're like, my best friend. Let's fucking.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But that is why we exist, and that is why when people enter the religious life, we look at them almost inhuman and almost fondly, because it's like, wow, you've given up.
I have a sense of awe for those people.
Me too. I do. I was like, holy shit.
How could you get? No.
Yes. I mean, how can you exist without the purpose of existing? Because that is, for most of us animals, that is why we do everything. It is to fuck. It is to make love, like it says in this movie, and everything in between is for that cause. It's like we want the better house, we want the better life, we want the better job, we want all of that so that we have that beautiful woman, so that we fuck. And the kids are a byproduct of it. And so when you're talking to the dinks and you're telling them, no, have the children so that you find meaning, they rarely find it. I've known people that you've seen them, like they were pressured by their family to start having kids, and they get miserable and they get divorced. And this does happen in reality. And it's because that's not a good thing to tell them. Don't lie to them, because when you have a kid, and especially have multiple kids, I mean, kiss your sleep pattern goodbye. Those nice times where you just take a nap or go to sleep, it's gone. It's not coming back. The woman, hey, guess what? Your figure is going to change. It is. You're not going to have that 18. Yes, you're still going to love the figure when they get later, and you might actually find them more attractive, but it will change, and it's going to be hard on you.
I will say, for all of the one or two females who may ever watch this video, just so you know, wife goggles are a fucking thing.
Yes,
I've been married for 14 years.
Yep.
She'll never watch this video. Like, I don't care. I'm not like talking shit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Married 14 years, we got 4 kids. Okay. Does she look like the big titted goth girlfriend that I married 14 years ago? No.
Yeah.
But what do I see when I look at her? I still see my big titty goth girlfriend from 14 years
Yes.
ago.
Yeah.
Right. So like
say that.
the woman that you are now, does that mean that you should become a 250-pound hippopotamus? Don't do that. Like respect yourself, respect your husband. Just like when
that's true. Yeah.
When I was 280 pounds, you know what I did?
Yeah.
I lost a fuck ton of weight because I didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
I respected my wife and my children enough to not be a fucking biomass hazard, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
But men don't actually see the woman that's in front of us. We see the woman we love.
Right. Yeah.
And so don't.
But a lot of times for the woman, it's still hard. It is. I mean, they do sacrifice.
It's not hard.
Yes, they do. And so you have to make that apparent to them. When I talk to young people that say that they don't want kids, I'm like, well, I ask them for the reasons. I'd be like, well, yeah, all that is true. But that's not the reason why not to have kids. Stop being a pussy. Oh no, like you just do it.
Have some courage.
Yeah, have some courage. Exactly. Because if you don't, the problem is that you're always going to be a man child, and whatever depression, anxiety that you have in your life, because these people are always anxious, and you know that. You meet them, and they are like, holy fuck, they cannot be in a place of opposition. They can't, because they clam up. They kind of walk like their asshole is super tight, like physically, and you see the way that their maneuver is like, holy shit. You cannot be in a stressful situation with these people, and they get anxious. And the thing is that the one thing you could always guarantee to everybody in life is that in one way or another, shit is going to hit the fan. It always is. And it doesn't matter how careful you are, how prepared you are. Emotionally, you're never prepared for when shit hits the fan. You're just not. You might be financially stable enough to deal with it, but you're never emotionally stable to deal with it. And so,
until you build that resilience.
Yes, exactly. Until you actually,
it requires testing and stress.
Yes, exactly. And many times it's like you just know what your duty is. You know, like if you eat food, you know it's for nutrition of your body. You're aware. Most normal people are aware of that. It's like, well, yeah, you need to eat to live. You know, that's the phrase they're going to say. Why do you get shelter? It's because you're going to die either in a cold or predator, or somebody's going to shoot you in the fucking face, right? And so it's like that's why you need it. And so we understand this. And so at the end of the day, it's like, then why are you existing? Like, why are you existing? What's the point? Why not kill yourself? Why not, like you said to your daughter, why not just put the bullet in your head? If you're just existing for nothing, you know, what do you do? Like you go to work, then you come home, and then you make keyboards, and then you sell that so you're financially secure, and then you save but for what reason? Because you're going to die. Each one of us, the one thing you could guarantee to everybody is that you're going to die, right? Yes. That is just a reality. We're in this world for a limited time. Right. I might only have, if I die as young as my dad, I might have another 20 years. If I die as my grandpa, I'm going to have like another 60 years. And so I don't know what it's going to be. Right. And so it's like, but the one thing I do know, and I'm fully aware, is that I will die. You will die. You know, Caleb and Josh, you will die. Your kids are going to die. And so you give birth to a child knowing that his fate is death. Like that is just the reality of everything. And so it's like, but why?
But the gift is so much better than the end.
It is, yes, right? Because the only way that you could ever know what it means to live is first to suffer. It's what it is, and there is no greater suffering, really, than a family, because you give everything to them.
Well, and everything, and you can't escape. Now,
you can't. Yeah.
This is where I'll bring in my side, right?
Yeah.
So I have PTSD, right? I got blown up over in Afghanistan. Jesus, that happened in like 2005, and I still don't like loud noises. I don't like crowds. I don't like trash on the side of the roads. Like,
yeah.
It still fucks. Well, because there's a thing that like just we as humans, like once your brain gets rewired. Like you can't unchange that shit, right?
Yes, yeah.
But, I spent years and years struggling before I got married and had kids.
Yeah.
Once I got married and had kids, I still struggled, but it was in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And although I was struggling, at least my life had purpose, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so if I would have left the Army and I didn't have my wife and children, I don't know if I would have been here today. And there are 22 veterans a day that commit suicide precisely for that reason, because they don't have a purpose. They don't have a reason to fucking live.
Yes.
And so, like taking it from the abstract and making it personal and making it, concrete and understandable. It's like you are defined by your duty and by your responsibilities.
Yes, exactly.
When you're in the Army, it's easy because they tell you what your fucking duty and responsibilities are.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the ways that you can begin to bring that back, especially once you're out, is by having a wife and by having children.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, now your duty and your responsibilities are being presented to you. Do you have the courage and the honor to grab that, hold it, and try to do the best you can with that?
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Worth it.
Yes, it's worth it because it is what your goal is. You have a goal, you have a function,
and it's fucking real.
It is real. Yes.
The
the child is real, and you see them, and you're like, "Holy shit! I got to get my act together. I have to work." Whether you have to work 2 jobs, like if you're born in a poor, I was born in a poor situation. I had illegal immigrant parents. Me growing up really was with nothing. But then when you start having the kids, you realize, holy shit, I just have to, I have to do it. It doesn't, at any cost necessary, I'm going to do it in order to provide for them. And I say that to them, and I've said it to everybody. I was like, hey, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter whether I have to do even a sinful act. I'm going to do it for them. All right. I would sacrifice my own soul for the sake of my children easily.
Oh, I have the the only thing that prevents me from doing things like we talked about earlier with the abortion clinic. The only thing that stops me from doing that is that I have a wife and kids.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
If I didn't have a reason, I would be Frank Castle all over this motherfucker.
Yes, exactly.
The one of the things that I learned is like, and again, like you were saying earlier, Caleb, one of the things that Jordan Peterson got right is we all have a monster within us. It's just that most people are so scared of it that they like try to pretend it's not real or anything else. And it's like, no. Oh, I know I'm a monster. I'm fine with it. I accept it. I know what I am perfectly willing to do to maintain the life for my children, to make sure that my kids have food. Like I will do terrible things. I have never had to do that, and I'm thankful, and my neighbors are thankful. But
not to see the neighbors on the streets. Be thankful I have food.
Dude, do you
think
it's
true though?
So true.
I would never tell them. Do you think I wouldn't serve them long pig if that's what was necessary? I would fucking eat my dog.
Yes. Of course. Yeah. Easily.
I love my dog.
Well, actually, I kind of want to do that regardless. No, but I do.
The Peruvian coming out of there.
Yeah. I want to know what dog tastes like. No, but in reality,
I ate it in Korea actually.
Have you? Is it good? Is it red meat or is it more white, like pork and?
Red.
It's more red.
No,
nice.
It's more red.
Yeah.
It's more red. It's not better than beef. Like,
what if you season it really well? It's a novelty. Yeah,
it's a novelty.
But yeah, I really do think that's why it is good. It's because of that suffering that you go through, and so it's like rather than telling the young people that it's just a sense of fulfillment. No, it's like it's a sense of suffering. But why else live? I don't understand why else you wouldn't live if it not for the suffering and if not for the overcoming of certain things. Because, so many people talk about like their bucket list or whatever. And it's like they think of it as so far in the future. They think of it as, that is might happen, and so I better prepare for the rainy days and be cautious and not have any risk and not have anything. And they're young, and they live in a society in which, for the most part, we're not cannibalizing each other, right? We're not like in West Africa or something where we're actually literally.
We don't even let people starve. Look at
yes, we don't even let people. Yes, people. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like every time I hear these dinks or these young people talk about the safety that they're looking for backup money, that COVID showed me that things are unstable. I was like, well, yeah, it showed you things are unstable. There's no doubt about that. But wasn't it fun? It's like, wasn't it glorious to not know what you're gonna do tomorrow? Wasn't it to like if you're young, I'm already I'm past 40 years old, so I look at myself, I was like, well, I shouldn't still be enjoying this, but I still do. And I remember when I was younger, I enjoyed it even more. It's like, it's worth it every time when you're unaware of where you're going, when you're unaware of what the future is going to bring, but you know that you have the balls big enough to overcome whatever shit life throws at you.
Well, and then you get to conquer the unknown.
Oh, yes, it's glorious. Yes, it's beautiful. It's like you wake up and you're like, "Fuck, I got a big dick," and I just beat that shit, right? It's like I did it, and people could not stop me, and nobody could stop me. And so when these people are just playing,
life just keeps throwing me curveballs, and I keep hitting them motherfuckers, and you can't stop me.
You can't stop. Yes, and if you don't do that, it's like I don't understand why they exist. In all honesty, I don't even understand why they get married. Like, why? One could love their wife. I love my wife. One can love their wife, but if my situation was to never have kids, why would I want a female roommate? Why would I want that? In the end of the day, it wouldn't be beneficial for my desire. If my desire was not to have kids, I would rather fuck a lot of women. It would be more fun, at least.
Oh, but have you seen them? They're not fucking lots of women.
They're not exactly, but that's the problem. It's like I see them. It's like you're not fucking like women, and you can't, and it's because they're in somewhat gay. Like when I said they're devilishly gay, I kind of mean that. So they're kind of gay. They want the gay lifestyle without the sodomy. And there might be sodomizing the wife. I don't know, but they want the gay lifestyle. Yes,
they're cuttlefish. They're
cuttlefish. Yes, it's disgusting. Yeah.
Do you know about that, Caleb?
Cuttlefish?
Yeah.
Not particularly.
All right. So what male cuttlefish will do is female cuttlefish will like go to the bottom of the pond and like try to blend in with the surroundings and whatnot. And so what male cuttlefish have begun to do over millennia and everything else, right, is they also will go down to the bottom and pretend to be females, and then whenever they get a chance, they just jump on and rape them. Nothing like male feminists.
So at all. The trans people in prison. Got it.
Yes, male feminists. Male
feminists, yes. Male feminists and dinkmen. Yeah, it's disgusting.
We're gonna pretend to be women just so we can get you.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's bizarre to me because you get closer to your wife, or if you're not married, your girlfriend or whatever, but you get closer to them once you start having kids, because now you're in it together. Now you produce life, and now you're tackling this new life together.
Now it's real, and
permanent. Yes, a permanent. Yes, yeah. That's why in Catholicism, divorce is not real. It's because once you start having kids and you consummate the marriage properly, it's permanent. You could pretend as if you got divorced, but you're still connected. You have kids.
I think that's the interesting thing about like the modern world, is that there is like permanence doesn't really exist in the modern world.
Right.
Like, even how your body looks is no longer permanent. You can just get plastic surgery.
Right.
Like, there is no permanency to the modern man.
How can permanence exist if reality doesn't exist?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. They deny it all. Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question before we wrap it up.
So we've gone way far away from courage.
We're talking about it. We're talking about it.
This is how like every Platonic dialogue conversation should just end up being a dialogue about something else, tangentially related. That's how it's to go.
Yes.
So I was reading I was reading Thomas A. Kempis the other day, and he said the beginning of all virtue lies in humility. And I thought about that for a while, but I don't know if I agree, because I would say, like I said earlier, virtue doesn't lie in this like, oh, I want to pray, so I'm going to pray now. I want to do this good because it's good for me, so I'm going to do it now. Virtue lies when it's difficult to do, which means wouldn't the beginning of virtue lie in courage and fortitude and not humility? Or what do y'all think? Like, the beginning of virtue and courage?
I normally say the beginning of virtue is courage. It requires that, definitely. It's one of the criticisms that I have against some people who are far too critical of someone like what's his name, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he cheated on his wife and everything. It's like most people most people who are critical of him are people who can't get pussy anyways. They don't know what it's like to have like women hit on you constantly. They don't know what it's like that you don't even have to try to get pussy. And so it's like when they were critical of people like that, I would say no. The fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger only has one illegitimate son shows me that he was actually virtuous for most of his life.
Yes,
in terms of his sexual impropriety, he fucked up. But for the most part, there's more courage and there's more virtue in Arnold Schwarzenegger than
if I was a movie star millionaire with the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger,
and the governor,
I would have,
governor,
bastards in every state. In most
exactly. Yes.
This is why I got in trouble at work the other day, because the topic of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky came up.
Yeah.
And I said, he's the fucking president. Of course he's gonna get his dick wet.
Exactly.
I mean, what are we living in where the leader of the free world can't get his dick wet in the Oval Office?
CEOs do it. Like,
of course, they all do throughout history. Throughout history, yes.
And yet we're mad at an intern.
Here's the biggest thing, right?
Even Abraham had his concubine.
Here's to me, the most amusing part is this. Every person who says something about this is saying that grown-ass women have no agency.
Yeah.
They're saying that a woman can't make a fucking choice about whose dick she sucks.
Yes. And I also do think that they're upholding themselves as virtuous, but I would say the person who is a virgin or chaste because they can't get pussy, I find no virtue in that. It's only the one who can do it but chooses not to. Once that instance of fortitude comes into play, then that's when virtue is there.
I wonder though if our view of the courage versus humility is more of the active or receptive type of personality. Like Thomas Kempis was a monk, so he was much more like a receptive personality than an active one. So I wonder if his writing on humility was influenced by the fact he was more of a receptive type. Well, I wonder if there's like a distinction between active and receptive.
So this is one of the things I was thinking about is like you were saying courage is one of the things that's necessary, and I agree with you. But I don't think that one has courage really for themselves. Generally, when one exhibits courage, it's in defense of others. It's in defense of an idea. It's you are putting yourself in between a problem and the thing that you love, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so that could be seen by someone, not us, as an act of humility in which you are supplicating yourself to the idea that's greater, right? And so, and this is where it becomes difficult because all the virtues interchange like a little bit.
At least the cardinal virtues do. Yeah, you're right about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it wasn't courage the reason that you joined the army. That was because you had humility and you appreciated the country that had given you these opportunities, and you loved, the genealogy of your family and how they had all served and all these things. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but I don't know. It's still kind of courageous to be like, yeah, I'll go overseas to where motherfuckers are blowing people up. Like, fine.
Yeah.
Like, where do you draw that line in between? And so, like, I can see how courage is an act of humility, because true courage done in love towards a goodness is you placing yourself between that idea, that ideal, and the problem that's attacking it. So I mean, I can see it.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, maybe they are inseparable. Maybe you can't have courage without humility, but also you can't have humility without courage, because it does take an act of the will to suppress oneself. And I think it goes back even to maybe the way that was really well explained scripturally, is when Christ says, "Those who seek to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will gain eternal life." And so there is a sense that when you reject the self for the sake of God, for the sake of goodness itself, that is when you have both humility and courage. That you can't, and so you can't really have virtue from that.
Early Christian motto, yes,
yes, yeah,
yes,
or at least a proto-Christian.
Yes, I fully believe that he was martyred. Like, I fully buy into the green halo, all of it.
Yes, me too. Yeah, me too.
But, I mean, he literally died for truth, which was the unknown God, which represents truth, goodness, and beauty.
Yes.
Can you get closer pre Christ? Can you get any closer?
I don't
Socrates? Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think you can. Like, I'm not a fucking philosopher like you two guys who read a lot or anything, but just knowing what I know, I'm a dad, and so like, would I hold my child responsible for rules that he broke before he knew the rules existed?
Right now, yeah.
That just doesn't make sense.
And if they were to discover its fundamental nature of the truth without you telling them, I'll say then you will exalt them to a point of being a great person.
But I also wouldn't hold it against him that he didn't know the rule before I told him the rule.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Any final thoughts on Plato, Laches, Socrates, fucking women, or courage? Any final thoughts?
I guess my final thought is, as I've said it before, probably too many times. Yeah, just I do think that we just have to, people, especially men, just have to start taking risks. And that encompasses courage, and really not to forget that, as if you're not going into the religious life, the point of your existence really is to fuck, and without that aspect, kill yourself, really, because if you're not devoting your life to God, which would be, someone like St. Paul would say is of the highest of virtue, is the religious life. And I know there's many, Pope John Paul II tries to argue against that. I really don't. Like I'm a married person, and I have no problem saying that the person who gives sex up for the sake of God, there is a greater virtue there. And there is an eternal suffering and struggle that they have that I will never know. And it's because people like me follow our base, natural, animalistic instinct to fucking produce children, and that's fine too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but there is good, and it's good. Yes, it is good, but there is something uniquely, I guess, majestic and better about the religious life. And so if you're not in that religious life, yes, take risks, be courageous in your risk taking, have sex, and produce children, and suffer for your kids and suffer for your wife. Every day that you work and every day that you suffer will make you better, and stop seeking your own fulfillment and happiness. Just give all of that shit up, because that's just bullshit. That's bullshit that people feed you when you're a kid, tell you that you're special and that you could do this and that. You're not. The only thing that you can really do is the thing you ought to do. The same way that when you eat is for nutrition for your body, when you fuck it is for the production of children, and when you exist in order to fuck. And so it's like, just act in accordance with that nature, and you will find peace, even through all the suffering. So yeah,
great.
That's how.
Joss, any final thoughts? Are we good to wrap it up here?
Yeah. I was having story time with Jeremy earlier, and I was like, I got to tell this story. So I got blown up in Afghanistan 04, 05. I forget the fucking year. It all blends together after a while. And the thing that I remember most above the blood sweat, everything else, is that I got knocked unconscious. And when I woke up, I was 20 meters away from where I got knocked out. And I was down in the prone position with my rifle out, watching the perimeter to make sure that nothing else came in. And so even though I got knocked out, when I woke up, I realized I'm not a coward, right? Because when all of the defenses were stripped away, when all of the fucking bullshit was gone, when I woke up, I was doing my duty. And I was pulling security and doing what I was supposed to do. And so if nothing else, and since that day, I haven't had to do anything like that again. But on that day, in that time, I knew I am not a coward. And that has been the greatest gift that God has ever given me. Because regardless of the trials and tribulations that may come, I know I am not a coward. And so I will fight, and I will strive, and I will do my goddamn best to try to move towards that which is good and true and beautiful. It took me a lot of years and a lot of time, right? But at least I knew that. And for those that never struggle, never strive, and never try, you will never know if you're a fucking coward or not. And you need to know this, and you need to work on this, and you need to try to develop and grow. It matters, right? The greatest book quote I have ever read came from a fiction book, and it's in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And the quote is by Tam Althor, Rand al'Thor's father. And it says, "Duty is heavier than a mountain. Death is lighter than a feather. It's easy to fucking die. It's really, really hard to do what is necessary and required.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why it matters."
Beautiful.
And with that, that wraps up the Trailer Park Symposium. Everyone, thank you for listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe. How YouTube feel. Where can Sammy, Sauce, where can people find you at?
Contra Gentiles, our podcast. And so we do our weekly show. And hopefully we get some more stuff out there.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm texting Grant, like, what's going on?
I know.
Yes, my episodes. Yeah. I had to go to work this week without listening to Contra Gentiles. That's the problem. My coworkers.
Yes.
Sauce, what about you?
Don't find me.
Got it. Everyone, thanks for listening. Have a good night.
All right, bye.